from Toronto. We might have one other.
It's like that
Okay.
But he knows, he's been here before. He used to have an office in here.
Okay. Testing, testing.
Are you in any of the incubators or?
Not yet. I'm thinking of applying to YC, but it's just I'm in the early stages. I just quit Starbucks work.
Okay, yeah.
Like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Testing.
Yeah.
Testing.
Yeah, look, I'm in the fray now.
Right on.
Where's that realization like?
Cool, cool, cool.
Oh, no, I just.
All right.
Well, but like they said that shit got
So we want to give this guy like 5 minutes or something, or? All right.
Soul was crying.
Oh, no, I don't mind.
The only thing that keeps you there, it's like, oh, you get this paycheck, which is impressive, not doing anything else.
But my soul is dying inside.
But my soul's like, you gotta do something, man. Like,
Yeah, it's the time. That's awesome. Very nice. He's like, keep telling yourself that, right? Like, it's true.
And you know,
What kind of business do you want?
well, so I'm a data scientist, right? So I was deep into like technical term is NLP, but a familiar product is ChatGPT.
Okay.
So was kind of doing that before ChatGPT became applied. Yeah. So I'm just building AI products and seeing like what sticks. Right. Yeah. Building one to teach math to like kids, but also like trades professionals.
Oh, okay.
Like electricians and stuff. Like they started with math. Most of them are high school dropouts, and then the certifications they kind of need to understand it. And I was like, ChatGPT is kind of, it will give. It will give you an answer. With math, it makes a lot of mistakes. Plus, like, if it gives you the answer,
Right, you never actually learned the process.
Yeah. So I'm building something that's kind of like ChatGPT, but instead of giving me a solution, it'll guide you towards it. Like
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's actually
right. And I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't make any like mathematical mistakes, because that's important.
Without being honest with word, right? I like that you were kind of hanging on to that, because I know, like, we did the TED events, and one of our, some of the conversations that we had, and one of our first TED talks with Jim McKenzie, who did a thing on education, and we were talking about how, well, back in the day, when in classrooms, and it might be, with the early industrial complex, and when we came out of the one classroom and went to more the industrial education program, which it still looks like today, unfortunately. Everything was about memorization, everything was about being able to do equations and things of that nature. But they said, oh, well, now they want the kind of the new education to be more about, can you reason yourself into finding, where to look for the answers, right? But it terrifies me as just a human that we would, give up the understanding of how we got to that and just blindly trust, like, oh, this is where I go for the answer. It just gives the answer and you answer, right? I love that yours says, like, well, answer two, but also learn how to do it. Understand why, and that way you can understand the variables too, and how it impacts things.
Whenever new technology comes out, there's like 50,000 ways to implement it. And the first iteration usually is, it can be eye-opening, but it's not the best. There's specific use cases. So I'm trying to look into the niche that I have some expertise on, because I used to teach at UF.
I think there's one person watching.
So
I think there's one person watching.
One of my girlfriends told me, she said, age on age.
I'm glad that you say that. It's like the past few years have been
Concurrent viewers.
rough. Not just,
but
personally.
Excellent connections.
That, I felt like I lost
good.
half my hair. And
Cool. It's like a first. we take those.
We got a long way to go.
I'll go out there one more time.
One of the entrepreneurs always said, like, kind of something similar. They said, like, I don't want to invent something that doesn't exist better.
Right, yeah.
So, or like you said, in your case, a niche.
It already is so hard that if you have to like invent new laws of physics to bring a new product to market, you're just never going to succeed.
Yeah, you can't catch up.
PC, although my first like go to market, I would just like get all these like education platforms and like other businesses who are teaching somebody, right? So it's easy to sell business and customers.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the strategy right now, and then I'm trying to build like a notebook. Talk to some of the engineers and be like, yeah, I understand it. What are the problems? Let's fix this. Coming out of school, they're just like, Jesus Christ, they taught me nothing.
Yeah, really, yeah, right, exactly.
All right, thank you for joining us today for the first.
So if we have it, we'll know who it is, that's the only bad part.
I really do appreciate you coming out.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Thomas is the organizer of 10X Gainesville, and he's going to be speaking a particular topic with a very lengthy title, but something about chaos.
How to find confidence in total chaos while hurtling towards certain disaster. A haiku.
And we are live.
Fantastic. So, first, I need to apologize to any of my speakers who are watching. I am doing the exact opposite of what I've taught all of you to do. I'm working from notes. So, I'm doing my best not to suck. If I do what I say, not what I do. So, there's that. Also, I want to thank Damien both for the opportunity to speak and also for the opportunity to speak out of order. I was approached about talking about a couple different C things, and I chose confidence particularly because I was not feeling very confident at the time, and it was an opportunity for me to sort of do some self-examination, see what's going on, and I had realized that I had actually emotionally been in this place before. And so this is my chance to explain that and pass it on to other people, hopefully help them find confidence in total chaos while hurtling toward their own disasters. So first question is like why, and secondly, like where did it all go? The first thing I noticed when I sort of thought about this is that it just seems like nobody has any confidence anymore for one reason or the other. For my personal case, it just sort of feels like after COVID, life just started repeatedly punching me in the face, and a lot of my friends repeat this. And being someone who's old, I noticed that younger people seem to struggle with confidence greatly, even when we look at the sort of media that comes out. In the 80s, the hero was typically someone who was annoying their way into dating somebody and doing problematic things on the side. And then in the 90s, it was all like, whatever, man, but they were confident in themselves. And now all the media is about heroes who are socially awkward and scared of their own power, and yet also somehow the chosen one. I will not comment on that, but it's interesting that art is reflective so much of our own inner doubts that it's now the cliche stereotype of the hero in most of our stories. And the other reason why I chose my title and made it sort of the silliness that it is it's kind of like death and taxes. We're going to inevitably find ourselves in a situation where we feel that way. We might overcommit to something, we might overstep on a project, something's going to happen where you just feel like you're on a crazy train. And whatever you want to call that, good or bad, I feel like I have experience in that. So first thing I want to do when addressing confidence is defining it properly, because I do think that we struggle with even figuring out and articulating what it is we're trying to get when we talk about confidence. And so to me, there are three important things about confidence. One is it's a quality of certainty. Secondly, it's where you get that proof for the certainty. So what the evidence are you using to build that belief? And then thirdly, and this is arguably the most important one, it's conveying that certainty to other people. If you're not able to do that, you don't get anything done, especially in a leadership or an entrepreneurship position. And there's a couple mistakes that we commonly make. This is not a judgment on anybody who makes these things or makes these mistakes. I make these same mistakes, and it's mostly because of the sources. Because we don't entirely understand what we're looking for, we go barking up the wrong tree. And so one of them is just, we follow the bad advice of faking it until we make it. And this tends to lead to what people would describe as magical thinking. I'll just wish for something really hard and it'll just happen. And a really good example of that in my mind is Elizabeth Holmes, the Theranos CEO. She was famously obsessed with Steve Jobs, but there's an interesting correlation between the two, whereas Elizabeth Holmes was arguably trying to will a technology into existence that did not yet exist. Steve Jobs was trying to change the way people interacted with technology that was already available. That's an entirely different set of everything. The next thing we go looking for confidence is in the self-help area. We talked to Tony Robbins. We then get talked into the hustle culture and people like Jocko Willink. Seize the morning, seize the day, get up and get after it. By the way, if you want to do a good impression of Jocko Willink, just pretend you're strangling yourself with your own neck. He just sort of sets everything in place. and then we talk about David Goggins, who's just an insane man who straps himself to things and runs in Death Valley and all kinds of craziness. These are outliers, but the important thing to understand is that they admit that they're outliers. They are the first people to tell you that what they do might not work for you. So any advice that they give is by definition somewhat limited, and it makes it problematic to just sort of think that I can just anger my way into confidence or just browbeat myself into confidence. And it doesn't necessarily match life. Third way that we go looking for confidence is through our faith. Now, I'm not telling anyone what to believe. I'm not talking about spirituality in that sense. This is not an argument over one thing or the other. In fact, the vast majority of people believe in some higher power, but I'm going to illustrate my point with a simple question. Do all of these people agree on what that higher power is? And now hopefully we might be understanding why it might be a little bit problematic to base faith on, or to base your confidence entirely on faith. There's another interesting quality to faith regarding confidence, and I think of the quote by Richard Dawkins, who said that faith is superfluous. What does he mean by that? Now also, let me also preface this. Richard Dawkins is a very famous atheist, and again, I'm not telling anybody what to believe. But what he means in saying this is that if I am on an airplane, I do not need to have faith that it will fly because I understand that it has wings, and wings operate on the principles of lift. I do not need to have faith that the sun will rise, or that the moon will come out, or that what phase of the moon will be on a certain month, because we understand these things. And so when thinking about confidence in that context, I don't need to test my faith if I understand the task in front of me. And I also don't need to test the faith of anyone I get involved in my silliness if I fully understand the task ahead of me. So now that I've outlined a couple mistakes that we make with confidence, what does this look like when we get it right? And I don't entirely know. All I have is stories about myself. So this is a little bit of good news, bad news. The good news is you get some silly stories about myself. And the bad news is I'm not really sure what they will say about me, but they're things that happened and are true, and I can tell you what I learned from them. So the story, the first story, I don't know if it's a story so much as just a little bit about my background. I did speech and debate in high school. There were band nerds and all kinds of other nerds. I was the speech and debate nerd. I did speeches, I wrote them, I recited them, and so by the time I made it to my senior year, I was obsessed with just winning as much as I could. And I had a problem that a lot of teenagers have, but it was actually from a good place. I was trying just to write the best speech I could, and that led me to not being able to write the best speech I could until literally the night before the first national tournament. And so I stayed up all night writing the speech. There's a 9-hour drive to Wake Forest, and so I was memorizing it in the car. And I went through my rounds. I had a memory lapse once, and through some miracle, I ended up taking first place. Yay me. So fast forward a little bit later in the year, I am now at Harvard University, only this time, and this is a much, much bigger tournament. My category alone had 158 people, and I am deathly ill. It might have been strep throat, might have been something. It was a major illness. It was like, I'd go, and I'd speak, and I'd collapse. And I'd go, and I'd speak, and I'd collapse. Like over and over again, I was just sucking on cough drops the entire time. And I make it to the first elimination round. There are so many competitors there that there's usually quarters, semis, finals, stuff like that. They have an octo-final round, so a top 48, and then a top 24, and all that other stuff. And in these semis and in this set of like post-game competition, I am now encountering my own speech because I'm realizing that over the course of my career that year, word had gotten out about what I was doing, and I competed directly against myself in some sense. And I ended up winning, so it wasn't that big a deal. No, I'm just but just imagine I spent the entire year with this whole thing, and I'm listening to my own material be recited back to me, and then I'm wondering, what does the judge think of this? And I had to just sort of live with that. And so I prevailed. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it basically is like, the high school quarterback years. But it's just, and its relevance might become a little more clear as I move on in the speech. Story number 2 is one of my self-productions. I had the wonderful idea to self-produce a stage play in the middle of a divorce. So I was in that really, really crappy part of divorces where you've lost all your money, your life is entirely fallen apart, you have almost no purpose in the world, and so what do? You make theater, because that's what you do. And anyone who's done any theater at any sense understands that it is horrendously expensive, and one of the tools, because this was in the earlier days of the internet, and so a tool that had been popular at the time was Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And so to raise my money, I decided, not entirely unreasonably, I just wasn't experienced at it, but I was going to raise the majority of my budget through an Indiegogo campaign. And on the faith of that alone, I was putting down deposits, I was holding rehearsals, doing all of these things, and I am going more and more into the production process and realizing that the money has stopped. I have raised about that much money, and I need about this much money, and I'm just here, and I have no choice, and at some point, I have to resign myself to the fact that I will be indebted to the Woolly for the rest of my life. Except on the day of the tech rehearsal, I'm just sitting and I'm checking my phone, and I realized that somebody had contributed $2,000 to my budget, essentially bailing me out of my arguably bad life decision. And this was purely because, and it was listed anonymously, but I found out who the contributor was, and it was just simply because she believed in what I was doing, which I don't want to belabor the point too much, might become clear as I talk later. Story number 3 is how I got involved in TEDx in the first place, and that is entirely my wife's fault. Leadership Gainesville was holding it was a capstone project for a class, I think LG 44. And everybody's getting excited, and they're all contributing what they might do. I'll do marketing, I'll be the treasurer, I'll do this. They get to my wife, and they're like, what do you got? And she's like, I talked to my husband, he's in theater. And so on that first year, I provided stage management support. The next year, COVID happened, and we hustled through and managed to have a great show. That year, I was co-organizing. It was also my first year coaching the speakers. Following year, I assumed the license and expanded that license. So TED operates almost on like a franchise model, and they tell you can only have so many people in your audience. And so I was successfully able to break that cap, and now we are as large as we want to be. And this year, I expanded that as much as possible. So we have doubled our size, doubled our capacity, doubled everything, and now we're actually seeing the potential of what this show can be. And it's been challenging. This has not been an easy win, but it has been a win, and that's very important. There's other stories like this, just other things. I don't know what kind of light they paint me in. To me, I remember them as dumb decisions, coping mechanisms, clumsy actions, awkwardness, and just sheer stubbornness and arguable stupidity. But other people seem to have a lot of respect for the things that I've done in these states of mind. And this brings me back to my title, again, Finding Confidence in the Midst of Total Chaos While Hurtling Towards Total Disaster. And what I was doing in doing all of these things and these silly shows and all this other stuff is I was just constantly pushing my boundaries, which tends to do that. And it's taught me this much about confidence, which is how do you know when you actually have confidence? And it's when you're not thinking about it at all. You're just doing the thing. And you do something long enough and often enough, and you stop worrying about it. But if you do feel like the world is falling apart and you're responsible for too much, you're probably doing a couple things, or a few things are probably going on. One, you're probably doing something for the first time. You're probably pushing your comfort zone aggressively, and this means that task represents a chance to completely redefine yourself. And while these are all wonderfully admirable things, I do still have some bad news. This is always scary. It is always scary, and it never stops being scary. And your doubts are always with you when you do this. So my only actual advice to you is to focus on your task. Make that task empirical. Make it into something like math, like a checklist, and just make it a simple case of pressure and time. Oddly enough, I often think of the Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies, but not all the things that people talk about, him getting out of prison, going through the tunnel of poop and all that stuff. I think of the quote by the warden in the beginning of the movie, "Give your faith to the Lord, but your ass belongs to me." So I just sort of think of it like I'm giving my faith in whatever there is, and I'm, in charge of my own butt. Or that came out better in my head. But there's a couple running themes in doing this, and it's just be comfortable not knowing, accept that failure can and does happen, but also understand that disaster almost never happens. And I think of a poem, which is very, very short, written by a woman, and I'm probably murdering this name, but Nayyirah Waid. And she writes, "I don't pay attention to the world ending. It has ended for me many times and began again in the morning." So to sum up, I'm kind of a big deal. You should choke yourself with your own neck if you're trying to sound like Jocko Willink. And try to remember that confidence comes from being tested. We are tested repeatedly, and each test informs the next test thereafter. So actually the game works in our favor, it just feels like it doesn't. So to anyone on their own crazy train, try to have fun with it. Acknowledge your fear, but remember the facts. You will be fine. It is okay to feel like a mess. You will be fine. Just get the job done. You're probably doing better than you think. And that's my story, and I am sticking to it. Thank you. Better than you think. And that's my story, and I am sticking to it. Thank you.
Awesome. So we have some time for Q&A. We actually had 2 concurrent viewers on YouTube, so thank you for joining us on YouTube.
Well, let me turn mine off.
If you do have any questions on YouTube, you're welcome to chat them, and I'll look at the chat here. But yeah, great job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good stuff. Who's the choking guy?
Oh,
I should probably know the
Jocko Willink, he's a former Navy SEAL.
Okay.
He has a very particular way of talking. Your body lies to you. And he's actually like, I think his book is called Taking Ownership or something like that. And it's not that anything he says is wrong. It's just that him and David Goggins especially, and I've read his book. That man's psycho. And I adore him, but he is nuts. I had a whole bit that I would just go on for 10 minutes, just sort of emulating him.
But I even do it.
Let me check chat. So if you are still here on YouTube, yeah, looks like you are. The perk of being here in person is that you are, eligible for our drawing. And we are giving away 2 tickets to 10X Gainesville coming up on this Saturday, March 2nd.
Yep.
And by default, it looks like when you were thinking.
What time and what's the event?
4 to...
So, door opens at 4 with pre-show activities. We've got performance speeches in the cinema space. This is all David Trump.
Okay.
The art gallery has a virtual reality setup you can interact with, and then there's a scavenger hunt around the building.
Okay.
VIPs have a lounge downstairs with some food and drinks, and they get to meet speakers, hang out with other cool people. And show will start at 5:30. After the show, there's a reception.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are the speakers? Speaking
Uh, so we have
Several.
we have 8 or 10. So
12.
yeah. So
Yeah, and then 10 and then 2 performers.
yeah. So Games and Circus is performing. Stanley Richardson, poet laureate, he's performing. Stephen Corson, who's a local businessman, he's performing. We have a Harvard lecturer on trial development. We have a gentleman who has an AI startup in California.
Oh, wow.
We have
international speakers as well, we like to keep some local folks as well, so that way it keeps the Gainesville element.
And are you like the hosting it or?
I'm the organizer, so I'm essentially the event planner for it. So I work with the whole team of people Dane's been helping out with graphic design and all other things. And I will have some opening comments
Right.
that I have you talking to you because it's really about people on the stage.
Right.
But the Kendrick Garrison's their MC.
Okay, and like, I'm asking these questions because I want to know like how the model works, like sponsorships or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, you know TED Talks.
Right, yeah, of
Okay,
course.
so these are the TEDx, so these are the locally organized
Right.
versions of that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I just don't know.
Right,
Yeah.
so we basically go out and we'll source sponsorships from, like, I think we've got Gas South and West Networks and
Right.
First Davis Company, and let's see here, Capital City Bank, I believe, is also a sponsor.
Yeah.
And, what's that?
Collier Company.
Collier
Yeah.
Companies, they're right, as a sponsor. So, and then that will help fund the actual event itself and everything, and of course the rest is through ticket sales and
I
such.
got you.
And we were pretty fortunate this year. This is like you mentioned, the event used to be capped at 100 seats. It was 100 tickets was all we were allowed to, but now they uncapped us, so we're basically getting close to selling a paper drum. So
Oh, wow.
on the main stage. So,
Very cool.
yeah, so it's a pretty decent event.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't think I've ever attended that event live.
It's really, one of the reasons why I keep doing them is because we did the first one, and everyone was like bonkers, and we felt like we had money in the bomb, it's just like magic.
Yeah,
And then we did it, and then COVID happened, it ruined everything, but we held ours anyway. And because of COVID, it was like right when they were rolling vaccines, and so we had a much smaller house, same damn thing. And it was like, people bouncing off the walls, so of course, it's a no-brainer, we're definitely doing it again with
Right. Yeah.
Same thing. So, like, it's
Everybody in the organizing team is like, man, this is now we're familiar with that house. Now we got to do it again.
but the other thing is that, like, in real time, you get to watch people make connections, either like professionally, they need somebody who has a good synergy with them, or it's what TED talks about, which is the ideas for spreading, they introduce things and concepts. And so it becomes a really good like networking thing.
Right.
You can get the event big enough, it starts becoming an economic draw, and that's kind of what is exciting me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, I keep thinking about like how Gainesville has immense talent. At least in my space, like I'm mostly like tech startup right now, and all the like at the people who are building things at the forefront of tech. It's like the ratio of workshops and talks like these compared to West Coast is like basically negligible here. And nobody knows about Gainesville. Like even people in Florida, like where's Gainesville? And I'm just like, hey, maybe there's a chance. And I know Pablo and Justice are doing good things to like bring people together. If nothing else. And I kind of want to be like, hey, let's find more tech people to come here.
Well, absolutely. And the other thing with TED is, of course, it's technology, entertainment, and design, right? But when we cast our open call and say, hey, please send us your ideas for TED, and we start kind of going through we don't get nearly enough tech folks. I mean, and we're just apparently not reaching the right veins to get to that group. We have like one AI guy, but he found us, but like we would love to showcase like local tech talks,
Yeah.
Right.
And there's like several ice cream flavors of that stuff. So like,
Oh,
this is like the main style of that,